Hey everybody, Blast Cat Badger here. So, I'm doing some older requests because the woman's at a doctor appointment actually. Just doing her follow-up stuff. So, yeah. I got plenty of time tonight, boy. Alright, let's jump in. So, I got this from Brandon Peters a while ago, and so we're going to do it now. And that is the Templin Institute Cadia from Warhammer 40K. Bub, I like the universe, I really do. I like the fictional universe. I love it. I love Warhammer 40K. I just don't like GW. Alright, so, without further ado, this is by the Templin Institute. Request from Brandon Peters. Cadia, Warhammer 40K, let's do it.
Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this investigation into the fortress world of Cadia. The first 500 people to use the link in the description will receive 2 free months of Skillshare's online classes. In the region of Imperial space designated Segmentum Obscurus, there lies an anomaly that has come to be known as the Eye of Terror. It is an enormous rift, a permanent storm in the fabric of reality that for 11,000 years has provided a gateway to the nightmarish realm of the warp. Inside is a dimension of madness and despair, where skies weep blood, ancient stars burn in multicolored flares, and the whims of the dark gods hold sway. Since the time of the Horus Heresy, the forces of chaos that reside within have attempted to break out from the Eye of Terror and strike at the millions of worlds that lay beyond.
So basically, the warp is pretty much like hell, for lack of a better word. I mean, there's like demons and warp spawn and, bad people all congregate there. So like the warp is a hellish dimension essentially. It's basically hell. Okay, there's no other real way to like put it.
Only one thing has stood in their path. A fortress world that guarded the only navigable route to the Eye of Terror. A place where time and time again, the servants of the dark gods would break against the greatest defenders of man. It was a planet known as Cadia, and it was here above all that the bloody work of the Imperium was done. A terrestrial world closely resembling Holy Terra before the age of the Imperium, Cadia was marked by great oceans, temperate plains, windswept moors, and towering mountains. Cadia was colder than most civilized worlds, yet not enough to impede the planet's settlement. It was famous across the galaxy for its sparkling glaciers and thick pine forests. It was the planet's network of strange black monoliths that remained Cadia's most enduring mystery, however, known across the galaxy as the Cadian Pylons. When precisely Cadia was first colonized has been lost to antiquity, but in the decades before the Horus Heresy, it had become inhabited by a primitive race of violet-eyed humans who worshipped the Chaos Gods. The Word-Bearers Legion and their Primarch, Lorgar Aurelian, was the first to re-establish contact with Cadia, but when...
Frickin' Lorgar, I swear. Then again, if you read the Book of Lorgar, the Primarch from the Primarch series, Warhammer 40K, the Primarch's Lorgar's book about how he was brought up and everything that he believed in and all that kind of stuff, like how he grew and got older and older and older. And then it seemed like he was, it's really hard to say one way or another. Although, he had the choice to try and carry on as a lot of his brothers did. Lorgar was a religious zealot, a religious fanatic, to the purest sense of the word. the purest sense of the word. He and his legion could not exist without some kind of religion to cling to. They were dependent upon religion. They could not be, they just could not seem to like really do, it seemed like they were incapable of anything else. And, you know, then again, you know, if you know anything about Warhammer 40K, each of the Primarchs are each kind of a part of their father, the God Emperor of mankind, or the one that created them, whichever way you want to see it. And this was like, Lorgar was the personification of the Emperor's like faith towards something. Even though the Emperor professed to be against religion. So yeah, like, on one hand, you could say that Lorgar just really didn't have much of a choice. He just was made that way, and then that was reinforced on him when he landed on his world. On the other hand, you could say that he made the choice to stay that way because it was easier, and he was a whiny little brat. So, like, yeah, Lorgar, yeah, the freaking word bearers, bub.
But whatever transpired in these initial meetings might never be known. Lorgar ordered the cyclonic bombardment of the planet, wiping out the native Cadians and whatever secrets they possessed. With the end of the Horus heresy, the Word-Bearers and their other traitor legions fled to the Eye of Terror to heal their wounds and nurture their hatred. Black crusades mounted across the galaxy from the Eye of Terror convinced the Imperium that Cadia was of vital strategic importance, and settlers were sent to the world to claim it in the name of the Emperor. Cadia was eventually forged into a world worthy of the Imperium, but it was learned at great cost that the planet would forever be threatened, and its entire society would have to reflect that. Its earliest cities were constructed in the traditional style emulating Holy Terra, but the broad avenues and ordered urban grids favored any attacking force, and sweeping changes were enacted. Cadia could not afford any distinction between its fortresses and cities. Streets were constructed in such a way as to disorient any potential invader, arrayed in zigzag patterns that would force an enemy to fight for every block. Bastions and local garrisons were stationed in every corner and spire that possessed a commanding view, while at the heart of every city was an enormous fortification known in the local dialect as a casser. From the air, these resembled intricate puzzles, which could be held for months, if not years, even if the surrounding city had been taken. Its people were no different than its buildings, reorganized into a society wholly devoted to the defense of their world.
And you know what? It would be awesome if we could recreate like the idea of Cadia itself here on Earth. Because Cadia was entirely united. Entirely united. There was almost literally nobody who was disparate in any way or divided. They all had a common goal and a common common cause. Holy dang, I can't speak. And they lived their lives through that. And Cadians were some of the best soldiers in the Imperium. Cadian shock troopers were highly sought after. So yeah, that would be nice. Unfortunately, that's unrealistic in reality, so there's no way to really truly make that happen here.
Every Cadian was taught the skills necessary to become a soldier from the moment they could walk. Tactical doctrine was prioritized above basic literacy, and every citizen was required to serve at least a 4-year term in the planet's military before either becoming a career soldier or instead joining Cadia's military-industrial complex.
So yeah, that's true to a point. But the thing is, a lot of Cadians, especially in the books, were very literate and very well educated. Incredibly well educated compared to a lot of other, like, worlds in the Imperium. So, I guess, like, I'm trying to remember from the book. I've read the book. Um, so yeah, because they are basically a a like a defense, like a planet dedicated to the defense of the Imperium. Yes, knowing how to fight and being effective at that definitely took precedence. Because it wasn't just the survival of their planet that was in question. It was the survival of the entire Imperium that was dependent upon Cadia, being as well fortified as possible. But at the same time, from what I read in the books, Cadian people were very well educated. So I don't know why they said that they weren't very literate. That doesn't, unless I missed something.
Even the wealthy and successful elite wore clothing reminiscent of the camouflage patterns issued to the lowliest guardsmen. The famed Cadian shock troops were widely regarded as the best soldiers in the Imperial Guard, and some of the most well-equipped. Regiments either formed on Cadia or those emulating its style and doctrine could be found across the entire galaxy. Cadian equipment, in particular, was so ubiquitous that it was nearly the standard of the entire Astra Militarum. For millennia, the planet stood as an unshakable foundation that challenged the will of the dark gods themselves. Every invasion was shattered, and every Black Crusade was repelled. But in the 999th year of the 41st millennium, Cadia was finally broken.
The planet broke before the Guard did. Cadia stands!
Abaddon the Despoiler, greatest champion of chaos since Horus himself, launched the 13th Black Crusade. In the opening moments, elements of the Planetary Guard turned traitor, assassinating Cadia's high command, its governor, and Lord Castellan. A reformed defense now under the command of Ursarkar E. Creed were able to contain this initial assault, but the Black Crusade was just beginning. In orbit,
And they were winning too. Like, towards the beginning, they were getting pushed back quite a bit. They were getting just hammered. Because, the forces of chaos, the bad guys essentially, launched everything they had at Cadia. Everything. Like superhuman warriors that were, spiced up and roided up by some warp sorcery stuff. They had their chaos steroids. Corrupted Titan legions, just everything they could throw at it. Orbital bombardments, if I remember correctly. They threw everything they had at Cadia. And in the end, the Cadians were winning. They didn't have a lot of Space Marines either. Cadia did not have a lot of Space Marines. It was mostly the Guard. And I believe they had a Steel Legion on there as well, I think. Or was it Cadian armor? Dang, I forget which one exactly. But Bub, and then they had what was called they had a backup plan. Once their initial forces had fought, all the, the chaos, the forces of chaos to a standstill, essentially, then they brought out their huge reserves and began wiping them out. Boy, it was glorious to read about. But then, of course, because Abaddon was a He's a bad guy, the top bad guy, and he's a sore loser. You know, he decided to do something cheap to try and win. So, yeah, there's that.
Planet, an enormous Chaos Armada traded blows with the warships of Battlefleet Cadia, all while reinforcements swept across Cadia's skies before joining in battle against the planet's beleaguered defenders. Mysteriously, it was not the famous fortress cities of Cadia that appeared to be Abaddon's primary target, but rather the large network of pylons, particularly those within the Elysian Fields. What precisely happened there can only be guessed at, but some claim that for a brief moment, servants of the Imperium working with ancient Xenos managed to activate the Cadian pylons. The forces of chaos were seemingly cut off from the warp, and even the Eye of Terror was said to shrink. By the order of Abaddon, however, an enormous blackstone fortress struck Cadia with the force of an artificial meteor. The planet's continents were split apart, its ancient forests burned away. The few who managed to evacuate the dying world bore witness not only to the destruction of Cadia, but to the expansion of the Eye of Terror across the entire galaxy. With the fall of Cadia, the forces of chaos had won a victory that for millennia had been almost unimaginable. Tendrils of the warp have split the galaxy in two, and there is little doubt that the Imperium has entered the time of ending. But the ultimate triumph of Abaddon the Despoiler still eludes him. The fall of Cadia has awakened something in the Imperium more powerful than even its greatest fortress. A hunger for retribution has swept across every world, and Cadia has become a martyr whose memory has spurred humanity to ever greater feats of valor.
Cadia stands! But yeah, like I was saying earlier, so actually Abaddon was losing really bad. That's why he threw the Blackstone Fortress at the planet. Because he was like, fine, if I can't have it, no one can. And all he did really was just piss everybody off. I mean, yeah, now Cadia is not standing in the way of the Eye of Terror, but the Cadian Guard are still around. A lot of the, a good amount of Cadians escaped Cadia to rally on in different places and to continue fighting the forces of chaos. The planet broke before the Guard did. Boy, Cadia stands!
If a creature like Abaddon is still capable of experiencing even a tinge of fear, then he must be haunted by the fact that in destroying Cadia, he has added 1 trillion fallen saints to the highest pantheon of the Imperium. For even as the planet split apart and its shattered remnants were consumed by the Eye of Terror, the red streaks of firing lasguns could still be seen in the darkness. Defenders of Cadia refusing to give in, even as their world cracked and burned around them. From their sacrifice has arisen a new battle cry, one shouted in hatred from the Arctic steppes of Valhalla to the deadly jungles of Catachan. A simple phrase that ensures the memory of Cadia will remain for as long as humanity endures. The planet broke before the Guard. Thanks again to Skillshare for sponsoring this investigation. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of
Alright, there we go, folks. The Templin Institute Cadia, Warhammer 40K. Damn Skippy, the planet did break before the Guard did. Boy, I love Warhammer 40K. It is awesome. It is awesome. If I ever recover financially and I'm able to do it, I want to get back into it. I really do. I really do. Boy, I miss the lore. I really do. Anyway, so yeah, Cadia stands. Anywho, what do y'all think? What do y'all think? Thank you, Brandon Peters, for recommending this to me. I greatly enjoy it. And yeah, so there we go. Again, what do y'all think? Y'all know what time it is. If you like this reaction, you like Warhammer 40K, you like the Templin Institute, then please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Then hit the real subscribe button, call the notification bell so you actually get videos when I post them up. Comment down below which I'm going to cover next. Like I always say, if you're a member or a first commenter, you get to request what's in the next series of uploads for however long I'm able to do them. And then, please, please, be good, be safe, make good life for yourselves. And I will see y'all in the next one.